everyone! Guess who's back? And welcome to Peach Pink Pages. This is Marichua of the Mar Project, and it's so great to see you guys again. So this is a comeback post in the form of a video for my official book blog entitled Peach Pink Pages, formerly Baby Blue Bookworm, and for this series, I'm going to be calling it Peaches Reviews Pages, which was formerly known as Baby Reviews Books. So this is a comeback post, and I figured we'd tackle another classic the same way I ended with the classic during my last post as Baby Blue Bookworm. So in order not to overwhelm you guys, I'm going to try and keep this commentary as short as possible, only because editing even shorter videos takes up so much time out of my system. Our classic of the day is a Fitzgerald story, so a quick trigger warning to everyone. This story contains themes of alcoholism and as well as abuse. So reader for the blog post and listener if you're watching this video or listening to it, discretion is advised. So 3 years ago, I read F. Scott Fitzgerald's best work, The Great Gatsby. Although I wouldn't say it's the best work, but that's just my own opinion. So you can read about the blog post of The Great Gatsby. I'll be posting the link in the description below. It has definitely become one of my favorite classics of all time. So it took me by surprise when I learned that The Beautiful and Damned, which is the book of today's video, was published before The Great Gatsby. So in a way, I like to see the latter as a sort of prequel, considering both stories take place during the era of the Great Depression and a bit of World War I. Both stories also discuss wealth statuses, each painting dark and disturbing themes that follow after the other. In The Beautiful and Damned, we watch wealth spiral downwards as it is overly spent and laziness and dependence increase. In The Great Gatsby, we unearth a mystery filled with fraud and deception as to how one man becomes a seemingly wealthy bachelor to chase after a love he could never have. If I think about it, maybe I do relate to Fitzgerald's works in such a way, and it's why they have resonated with me for a long time. As somebody who grew up in a privileged household, I was used to accepting such luxuries as I got older that now I could see why adulting is difficult, because we can't become dependent on money or family wealth forever. Unlike our bachelor here, Anthony Patch, who seemed to have relied on his grandfather's wealth and inheritance, especially as he got older. In the story, he starts off as a 25-year-old man and he's going to get into his 30s as the story goes on. So Anthony is somewhat referred to as a trust fund kid, or somebody who has always been supported financially almost their entire life by relatives or anybody closely linked with them. Becoming a trust fund kid is not always a good thing. This means you'll always be financially dependent on your supporter. In this case, it's Adam J. Patch, Anthony's grandfather. For this vlog purposes, just to shorten it, I'm going to be referring to him as AJ in some parts. So let's move on to the summary of the story. Anthony seemed to have had it all thanks to his family wealth. He grew up living in a posh New York City apartment. He has luxurious clothes, and he got to study in Harvard. His grandfather, Adam J. Patch, or AJ, is very much against Anthony's beliefs. AJ, being Anthony's opposite, plays an important role in the story that becomes useful as Anthony's life progresses. We will see that Anthony is lazy and incompetent, always wanting to host or attend lavish parties and hang out with his Harvard besties, Maury Noble, hopefully I pronounced his name right, and Richard Caramel, the last name slaps by the way. Through Richard, Anthony meets his cousin Gloria Gilbert. Gloria is beautiful, described as a siren in earlier introduction chapters. So sometime around before chapter 2 of the story, so we're going to read from page 25 over here. So this chapter is called A Flashback in Paradise, or at least this segment. So Beauty, who was born anew every 100 years, sat in a sort of outdoor waiting room through which blew gusts of white wind and occasionally a breathless hurried star. The stars winked at her intimately as they went by, and the winds made a soft, incessant flurry in her hair. She was incomprehensible, for in her, soul and spirit were one. The beauty of her body was the essence of her soul. She was that unity sought for by philosophers through many centuries. In this outdoor waiting room of winds and stars, she had been sitting for 100 years, at peace in the contemplation of belief. It became known to her at length that she was to be born again. Sighing, she began a long conversation with a voice that was in the White Wind, a conversation that took many hours and of which I can give only a fragment here. So in this part where Beauty, seemingly the character of Beauty, is introduced, there's like a dialogue that is of an exchange between Beauty and an entity only known as the Voice. And the Voice says, "Your life on Earth will be, as always, the interval between two significant glances in a mundane mirror." And Beauty asks, "What will I be? Tell me." And the Voice responds, "At first, it was thought that you would go this time as an actress in the motion pictures. But after all, it's not advisable. You'll be disguised during your 15 years at what is called a society girl." Despite the beauty of Gloria, she's also described as someone who is vain and party mad, or at least, the equivalent of a party animal. So it starts off that Gloria is initially involved with Joseph Blockman, a movie producer, and she has also two best friends named Muriel and Rachel. Gloria initially leads Anthony on, playing with the poor guy's feelings, though that does not stop him from continuing to pursue Gloria. Eventually, he reveals his intentions towards her and asks for her hand in marriage. And they do get married. The ceremony takes place at AJ's lavish mansion. The couple's honeymoon takes place in California, and they attend or host all sorts of wild parties together. This continues as they return to New York City, but everything changes when AJ becomes ill. Meanwhile, Anthony expects to inherit a lot of money from his grandfather. AJ, already disappointed with Anthony's latest actions, encourages him to at least serve in the war and warn him of his behavior as the First World War starts to happen. So of course, Anthony refuses to listen to him, and he and Gloria continue to exhaust their wealth with parties. Due to their overspending, it becomes evident that finances slowly struggle. Unlike their friends who become more successful in their lives, Richard becomes a successful novelist, Maury finds himself a respectable job, and Joseph Blockman's films skyrocket into popularity. Meanwhile, Anthony still refuses to work or do anything for himself. The moment the Patch couple's financial situation enters a downward spiral is when they can no longer afford a trip to California, nor stay in Anthony's lavish apartment, so they have to move into a smaller unit. It is also caused by the increase in prices due to the ongoing war. However, they are still unfazed by this as Anthony continues to party and especially get involved with alcohol. He even chooses to pay for his friends' food and drinks, further decreasing his overall wealth. One day, in a drunken incident, both Anthony and Gloria unintentionally sign a lease for their house, so they end up spending a summer away from the city. In another drunken incident, Anthony drunkenly encounters AJ, who is very disappointed in him. Because of this, AJ refuses to see Anthony, having his secretary, Mr. Shuttleworth, ban him from meeting him to apologize. So, if you think about it, Anthony is kind of cooked. And his letters towards his grandfather are left unanswered, and soon AJ passes away. The harsh truth is revealed when Anthony finds out that he was not included in his late grandfather's will. This begins Anthony and Gloria's battle for inheritance through the court. Without enough money to depend on anymore, the couple starts to bicker and they resort to drinking even more to cope with their bitter arguments. Anthony's life in the city is put on hold when he is also drafted into the army as the United States takes part in World War I. In the South, Anthony spends time in war camps, a life away from the city he had grown accustomed to. He finds himself surrounded by the lower-class men, and he also develops an affair with Dot Raycroft, who is a 19-year-old woman. His time at the army especially is troublesome due to always wanting to meet with Dot, and he even misses curfew because of this, so for a month he is sentenced. When his temporary confinement ends, he gets the flu, and when he recovers, he is sent back to New York as the war comes to a close. But because he was away for so long, Gloria was left alone in New York City for quite some time. She drinks alone and even starts seeing or at least hanging out with other guys. When Anthony returns in Gloria's life, rekindling the relationship becomes a challenge when they both resume their drunken states anyway. Without Anthony's knowledge, Gloria arranges meetings with Joseph to try and include her in his films as a way to earn some money. Though this plan backfires because Joseph's director has deemed her too old for multiple parts. This completely destroys Gloria's own self-image as she had always been seen as young and beautiful. I Smell a Substance reference. Really good body horror movie. Would totally recommend you guys check it out. As their financial situation spirals further, Anthony becomes a full alcoholic and Gloria has to learn how to cook her own food and tend to the household. Typical 1900s couples, I guess. Anthony's bank account closes and he tries to borrow money from Maury, but he denies him, and Anthony gets into a fist fight with Joseph. As things are supposedly getting worse, Anthony is suddenly informed that it may seem that he may receive his grandfather's money after all. For the verdict, Gloria and Richard are called to the court. Anthony is unable to show up to the trial though because he runs into Dot. Rather, she shows up at his door and confesses her love for him. This upsets him, and trigger warning for abuse, he almost throws a chair at her, which is absolutely terrifying, although it's not really specified what kind of chair he threw at the poor lady. So Gloria and Richard come home the same evening, having won the court case, and Anthony's now worth $30 million, so good for him, I guess. However, it seems like the once beloved wealthy bachelor has lost his mind officially, as Anthony was seen on the floor playing with a stamp collection, which is odd, I guess. In an epilogue scene, Anthony is now on a wheelchair as Gloria accompanies him aboard a luxury liner. Passengers around them gossip about the couple's initial success and their downfall, but behind it all, Anthony is just happy that he has lived long enough to endure these challenges and stick to his principles, whatever that means. Now we move on to a bit of the analysis of the story and the themes presented. So from our summary, the recurring theme of the story is wealth and waste. Anthony and Gloria Patch especially exhaust their wealth by spending it partying and drinking. Without realizing the consequences of their actions until the near end of the novel, Anthony Patch is especially immature in a financial way. It wasn't until he started to drink excessively, cheat on his own wife, and be excluded from his grandfather's will when he realized that he had messed up. Meanwhile, Gloria does not initially realize that the value of beauty can sometimes diminish. Before Chapter 2 of Book 1 begins, as I have read out earlier, we will see an unknown narrator entity, known as the Voice, and a character only known as Beauty, which introduce and foreshadow the life and times of Gloria Gilbert. From the title of the book alone, beautiful may refer to Gloria and damned as Anthony. However, these two words and characters' lives collide as they both lose their charm and wealth and fall into madness, or rather, damnation? They fall victim into the own wealth they were born with, born into a social class that promises unconditional financial security and the leisure to pursue fruitless projects. They conduct their lives with the expectation that their poor work ethic and imprudent financial decisions won't cost them wealth, respect, or happiness. Thank you to Lit Charts for this paragraph because I could not think of anything else to write. With their expectations comes dreams they have that they themselves also destroy. The America Fitzgerald depicts in Beautiful and Damned is obsessed with the dream of becoming wealthy, which is also similarly presented later on in The Great Gatsby. Those who are already wealthy dream of becoming wealthier to the point that of each standing out as a single millionaire tycoon in the crowd. Fitzgerald is uneasy about the way the wealthy, who have never had to work for anything, can so easily misread the possibility of greatness as the promise of greatness. Again, this next paragraph was also from Lit Charts. The American dream of wealth and power is especially discussed further in Fitzgerald's next novel, as I mentioned, The Great Gatsby. So, go check out the original post. Again, link will be in the description below. And maybe if I have time in the future, I guess I could do a blog version of it. That is, if I maybe perhaps reread the book again. So now we move on to the closing thoughts of this blog post or video. This book, like I had stated, really hit me hard. Would I say I was born into a wealthy or privileged family? I was, but now that I'm older, I was also properly taught by my parents that we can't always have everything we want. I was a spoiled brat myself, admittingly at some point, and perhaps I still am until now, but I know when to accept when certain things cannot go my way. I also know that in order to attain something, we really have to work hard for it. I would not want to rely on the money of other people for the rest of my life and be able to find a way to fend for myself in the future too, even if it may seem difficult. You know what? Because I still have some residual Squid Game brain rot and hyperfixation moments, I guess I may as well talk about it here. Imagine if Anthony and Gloria found themselves in Squid Game USA. Spoilers for season 3, I guess. Anyways, you see why gamblers lose a lot of things and end up in such concerning and almost dangerous situations without realizing that others may already be waiting for and betting on their downfall. They find it entertaining, like how we watch horse races. As Seong Gi-han once said, "Humans are not horses." Then, as we read The Beautiful and Damned, ask yourself, Who exactly are the horses? Well, I'll catch you later. This was my first time in over a year trying to write for my blog again with a commentary, so some writing can be a little bit sloppy and maybe my script is still kind of messy. So please be patient with me, and I hope you'll continue to catch my entries and vlogs, especially if you're watching the YouTube version of this one whenever I'm able to publish. Once again, it feels so good to be back, and hopefully this vlog did not bore you this time. I tried my best to keep it as short as possible. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. So this was Speeches, Reviews, Pages, the new version of my book blog series. And this was Marichua of the Mar Project. I'll see you guys in the next vlog. Bye! Okay, I know my new setup is kind of weird, but I'm currently experimenting and getting better sound and video quality. Actually, this whole time I was recording the vlog with my webcam from my laptop because it seemed to have like a more clear quality and better lighting for some reason. And I decided to use my phone speaker as a mic to record this. I should probably find the time to get better resources for my vlogs. But anyways, yeah, I'm gonna go now. Bye guys!